These are the 7 biggest mistakes I learned when starting my gardens, and they all cost me a ton of time, money, and frustrations. So if you're new to gardening, or even if you've been at it for a while, grab your coffee and stick around. I want to walk you through everything that I learned the hard way, so hopefully you don't have to. So it's really rainy and quite cold, not the most pleasant day to be outside, so I am forced to actually be inside today. I actually came out here to enjoy my coffee under the covered deck and was thinking about my plans for next year, which actually also got me reflecting about some of the mistakes that I made over the past years. And I really wanted to go ahead and share that with you guys because they were quite costly. And I'm hoping that if you guys avoid these things, it'll give you a much stronger start to your garden. All right, so number 1 on my list is buying too many varieties of plants. And when I first started, I would go to the garden center and I would go there quite often. And if I had the budget to buy 10 plants, I would buy 10 different plants. I would come home, get them in the ground, and it would just look like complete chaos. And so what I would do differently is if I had the budget to buy 10 plants, I would buy 10 of the same plants. And it just makes a much larger impact and looks a lot more intentional. So rather than it creating chaos and your eye not knowing where to go or what to land on, you get a nice cohesive look that looks like it was intentionally planted. And you want to make in the back of my head, I kept thinking that I could divide these perennials and make them bigger, but it takes so many years to do that. And while it is budget friendly, while you're working on growing your bed that way, it just doesn't look right and you're going to get frustrated. So again, if early on my intention was if I bought one of each, then I could save money by splitting them down the road. However, in the time being, that just led to me feeling really frustrated and unhappy with what I've created. So what I've learned again is even if I do intend on splitting the perennials down the road to making more of them for that cohesive and intentional look, I still really want to practice restraint and not buy too many varieties. Just remember that rhythm and repetition is the key to success here. All right, it got a little too cold to keep sitting outside, so I decided to come inside and repot some things. So point number 2 is not paying enough attention to the health of your soil. And this really was a huge one. You hear so many people talk about it, and in my little brain back then, I really thought it was something that I could ignore. So if I had $20 to spend, my thought process was, well, I know that people keep saying that the health of your soil is so important, but I would rather spend that on something that I can see immediately rather than something that you can't really see, and quite honestly is not the sexiest part of gardening, if there is a sexy part of gardening. But really that did me a huge disservice. So I would get a whole bunch of plants, and then I would come home, dig a hole, stick it in the ground, and then sit there and wonder why it wasn't growing, why it wouldn't be blooming, why it was covered in pests. And it really all came down to the health of my soil. And once I started paying more attention to that and focusing on that, really things started to change for me. And what a lot of people don't know is it really does help with pest control. So it's kind of like your body, right? The healthier you are, the less prone you are to illness. It's the same thing with the plant. The healthier the plant is, the less prone it is to pests. So really, if you are going to start a garden, make sure that your soil is healthy. And if it's not, then make sure you're working to make it healthy. And that includes adding compost as a top layer, as a top dressing in the fall, adding compost into your dirt when you're digging holes for your new plantings, mulching, using leaf mulch, and all sorts of things of that nature. All right, number 3, and this one is a silly one, but it's digging the wrong size hole. So a lot of times I would come home, with a plant that is maybe the size of a quart or a gallon or whatever it may be, and I would literally dig the hole the same size as the plant, thinking that sounded logical. And a lot of times I will even admit once I was tired of working in the garden all day long, I just wanted to get those plants in the hole. Sometimes it wasn't even the right size of the hole. Sometimes it was a little bit smaller, and I would just kind of cram the root ball in there as best I could and call it a day. And that was not the right choice. You want to make sure you're digging your root ball a little bit bigger than the plant, ideally twice as large, but bigger than the plant. So those little roots have a place to go. And as soon as they hit the ground, they're not running into that really hard compacted clay soil. The other thing is knowing how deep things like to be planted. So something like a tree, you really want to make sure that crown of the tree is showing. You do not want to plant a tree too deep because you can actually end up suffocating it, especially if you put mulch on top of the soil once the tree is planted. All right, number 4 is quite a common one, and I hear a lot of my clients say this when I'm installing their garden beds, and that's understanding when to use your sprinklers and what sprinklers are truly good for versus something like a drip system or how to even begin to water their plants. So sprinklers are great for lawns. Sprinklers are not good for your garden beds. And why is that? When you are watering a plant or a tree or a shrub, you want to make sure that the water hits the root balls. That is what's going to be feeding the plant. That is what needs to be watered, not the leaf canopy. So what do sprinklers do? Sprinklers water from overhead, which is why it's great for the grass, but it's also not great for something like your plants because it lands on the leaf canopy, which can lead to a lot of issues like powdery mildew, or other sort of fungus challenges throughout the season, especially in humid environments like we have in northern New Jersey. So really, drip is a great way to manage that. And what drip does is it allows you to put the emitters right at the root ball and control the amount of water that the plant is getting rather than just watering the leaf canopy at the top. Number 5 is something that I feel all of us gardeners fall into, and that is thinking mistakenly that we're going to remember what we planted and where we planted it. So a lot of your perennials die all the way back to the ground in the winter, and you're going to sit there and think, I remember what I planted there. And come spring, before things have already popped up yet, you're going to want to start planting some new spring things, whether it be annuals like violas or some sort of perennial. And then all of a sudden you're going to hit a root and you're going to be like, is this a weed? Is this something that I planted? And you're not going to remember. So one of the things that I learned early on, and I am still learning because I am still not the best at it, is to make sure you label what you have where in your garden. And you can get a lot of different plant tags and use a different kind of plant marker. I will make sure to add a link in the video description below for some of the things that I have found to be helpful, because sometimes if you just use a Sharpie, after a couple of years, that can wear off and you can't see what is written on the tag. Number 6 would be buying without cohesion. So how many times have I walked into a garden center and they were having a massive sale on a plant that I hate? And even though I hate it, I felt that because it's reduced by 50 or 60%, well, I can't just walk away from it. I have to have it. It's going to go somewhere. It'll be fine. And then I stick it into the ground and it's not fine. I hated it before and I hate it now. All I end up doing is digging it back up and gifting it out to somebody else that might appreciate it a lot more than I did. So don't fall victim to sales at the garden center, even if it is discounted and a lot cheaper than it normally would be. It might end up costing you in the long run. The 7th one is also a fairly common one that I see for new gardeners, and it's falling prey to drought tolerant plants. Because what people don't understand is, yes, things are drought tolerant, but first they have to be established in a garden bed before you can take the water away from them. So that means if you plant something and something is drought tolerant, it takes them usually at least one season for that plant to get established before you can kind of leave it alone and it becomes drought tolerant. So a lot of times people think, well, if it's drought tolerant, I can just plant it in the ground and kind of forget about it. And then they came back to me and they're like, well, why did it die? Well, it died because you didn't water it. And the way that you can tell if something is established is you start seeing regular growth on it. So as soon as you start seeing regular growth on it, new leaves, new buds, things like that, you can slowly start pulling back on the watering. You don't want to pull back on it right away because that'll shock the plant and it'll also die. Shrubs and trees take a little bit longer to get established. So while something like a perennial, such as a salvia or a grass, might take a full growing season, a shrub or a tree like a weigela or a birch tree might take 2 or 3 seasons. You really just need to pay attention to it. All right, I have a bonus tip for you guys. So it actually is 8 tips. And that is to think through 4 seasons of interest. So a lot of times people go to the garden center once. And let's say you visit the garden center in June, and in June they have a ton of beautiful things that are flowering. You get those in your garden bed, and all of a sudden your bed is going to look awesome in June. And by the time July and August rolls around, it doesn't look so good because the things that were blooming in June are no longer in bloom anymore, and everything else has kind of either died back. Or sometimes you walk around your backyard in the dead of winter and it is just bare bones. There is not a sight to be seen. So I would recommend you visiting your garden center at least once, or ideally 2 or 3 times each season, to figure out what is something that is really appealing to you throughout all of the seasons. So what brings really vibrant color in the fall? What adds interest in the winter? What starts blooming early on in the spring? And what adds beautiful color in the summer? So those are the things that you kind of want to think through as you're developing your garden bed. And as always, have patience because it takes time. So I hope you guys have found these tips helpful. If you have any more, leave them in the comments below, or if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I think the biggest thing is gardening takes time and it takes a lot of patience, and I'm still learning, and I'm still learning a ton from not only my own experience, but in speaking with other more experienced gardeners. And sometimes what works for others doesn't work for me. So it's a lot of trial and error. But I hope this makes you guys a little bit more confident to start your own garden bed next year. If you like my content, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.